Now, let me ask a very important question. Are you a big honking man? Big, giant pile of beefcake. And honestly, you feel like you need to have a giant SUV and big, rugged tires and just massive sound and exhaust and yeah. Well, let me tell you something. There was a point in time in Europe and currently in Japan where even big honking men have to fit in small micro cars. Now, nowadays, we look at cars and what we consider small is usually something like the Chevy Spark, maybe the Toyota Yaris, the Ford Fiesta. And yes, let's not get it twisted. Those are small cars, but to what standards? See, I'm going to speak here from the perspective of an American. We have massive cars here, pickup trucks, SUVs everywhere. Long gone are the days of people just buying coupes and sedans, even hatchbacks. But you see, that's here in America. But I mean, before we even talk about current car trends going on around the world and why currently some countries have smaller cars, why don't we first figure out why it even started? And also let's define, what do I mean by small? See, when cars were starting to become a big thing, at first they were a bit of a commodity. It was a luxurious vehicle that was mainly just for the rich. I mean, that's how a lot of new inventions kind of start out. Horse and chariot was the same thing. Chariots were these large, bulky vehicles that were pulled by horses that were usually very luxurious on the inside and quite ornate on the outside. Cars started off as a luxurious commodity in the 1920s and in the 1930s, all in the interwar period. But post-war, there were a lot of countries that were trying to rebuild. As a result, cars in general, especially in Europe and Japan, became more utilitarian and need-based. But with more and more people obtaining cars, larger cities ended up very congested. See, none of these cities were equipped at the time to handle large volumes of vehicles. And at the time, there were also not that many regulations regarding cars, which means that roads weren't exactly marked for a certain way that cars were supposed to flow. But you see, cars from the interwar period were pretty big. They were large, kind of chariot-inspired styles. They were tall, kind of wide. And so in Europe and in Japan, where there's a lot smaller of a space, especially in big cities, roads were narrow, streets were tiny, big cars just weren't useful. They were clogging up and taking up so much space, and it was just unnecessary. So auto manufacturers and car designers figured the streets are already small. Honestly, we should make vehicles that conform to the streets we already have. In the 1950s, that's when a lot of the small micro car development started. And one notable example is in 1955, BMW introduced the Isetta. Now you look at this thing and it looks like a bug, like a really small, ugly, disabled bug. And something becomes quite apparent very quickly if you're looking closely. It has no doors, or does it? That's right, its face is the door. So then, where the fuck is the engine? It's right there, behind you, behind the seat. Now you notice immediately the rear two tires are really close to each other that at that point they're practically a single tire. Kidding, but you know, they're very close to each other. But I mean, it was efficient, it worked for European streets, and it was the first mass-produced vehicle to be this, tiny. It had a little bike engine, it was good on gas, it was perfect. It's just what a lot of European people needed. Following a bit in the Isetta's shadow, footprint, would be the Peel P50. It was originally made from 1962 until 1965 by the Peel Engineering Company on the Isle of Man. In 2010, Peel Engineering Ltd reinstated manufacturing of the Peel P50 and their new Peel Trident. Yes, this thing is real. Now going up in size a little bit, but still relatively small, the Reliant Robin. It was originally produced from 1973 until 1981 in the UK. Then it was revamped from 89 to 2001. Now, immediately you notice it's got one wheel in the front. It's another three-wheeler, just like the P50. But its issue came in the fact that they decided to have the single wheel in the front. So it was prone to this.
There we go, Reliant Robin. Oh no.
And this.
No, not again. Oh no.
And honestly, it made it slightly inefficient. They didn't sell particularly well, but surprisingly, they still actually have a cult following. And I mean, yeah, can you blame anybody? They're quirky little things, but they suck. They'll get you places, just not the places you want to go. They're mainly going to get you down to the asphalt. Now, it's hard to talk about tiny cars without bringing up one of the most famous ones and most recognizable ones, the Mini Mark I, which was produced from 1959 until 1967. They're adorable. They're so cute, and I want one. They only had a height of about 4 foot 7 inches, which for any non-American viewers, that's about 1.4 meters. They were only about 10 feet long, which was about 3.05 meters. And they were only 4 foot 8 inches wide, or slightly more than 1.4 meters. So tiny, very, very tiny. Now, unlike some of the other small car examples, not including the Reliant Robin, the Mini made use of an actual car engine. Note, it was a tiny car engine. The biggest version that it came with was a 1.3 liter 4-cylinder. Now, sales of the Mini were slow at first, but they picked up very quickly. Eventually, in the 1960s, production picked up to over 1 million cars. Then in the 1960s, it entered pop culture because who doesn't love tiny little cars? The Cooper S version was even used in some British police forces. Yes, imagine getting chased by the police in a tiny little nugget of a car. Will the thing catch up? God, no. But you're gonna look goddamn adorable chasing that criminal down the street. He might have killed a man, but you're killing me with cuteness right now. I want to kill myself. Now, this is in Europe, right? This was the past for small cars in Europe. But it wasn't just Europe that developed small cars. In fact, there is a country that has created an entire subcategory of cars that are tiny. I'm talking about Japan. It's no secret that Japan is a small country, so they're a bit limited on space. Because of that, density is something that's very high in Japan. Very, very dense cities with small, narrow streets. So what did Japan do? They created K-cars. K-car roughly translates to light automobile. And the whole point of a K-car is to be a small, compact vehicle that fits in smaller streets. K-cars aren't sold here in the United States at all. You can import them, and some people have, but for the most part, they're just sold in Japan and other surrounding countries. Now, there are quite a few K-cars that are actually quite famous. First off, the AutoZam AZ1. AutoZam was a sub-brand of Mazda. Didn't last very long, so technically you could say it's the Mazda AZ1. The AZ1 had gull-wing doors. Beautiful design choice, love that. And as you can see here for a size comparison, we have the handsome man Doug DeMuro standing next to the AZ1. Here's it next to a GMC Yukon. I mean, granted, a lot of cars can look small next to a GMC Yukon, but not this small. It looks like a remote-controlled car. Look at how compact this interior is. Like, this is actually hilarious. There's no way. Yes, they're pickup trucks, but damn, I mean, look at it fitting in the parking space. And the thing is, it's not the only car this small. Another very famous example is the Suzuki Cappuccino. It actually looks like it's supposed to be a little Tyke's car for like a 5-year-old. This dude is almost as long as his car. It's insane. But it still offers a lot of what these bigger cars do, except for power, and speed, and good acceleration. Probably won't get you any women either. Now, you might be wondering about the safety of importing any of these little cars over to the US, especially with how small they are. And yeah, it is a little bit of a safety concern for the same reason that they weren't sold here. They're really tiny, so sometimes, especially with a bigger car, if you're driving down the road or down the highway, you are going to be fitting beautifully in a lot of people's blind spots. Pretty much just like bikes do. It'd be about the same conversation. But for tiny cars, they're actually designed pretty well to still be able to fit everything that's necessary in them. They still have all the safety features that are necessary for a car. And a lot of them still have pretty decent amenities and quality of life additions. So Japan pretty much killed it when it came to designing and building these cars. They still have everything you need and they fit beautifully on smaller streets. I know there's probably some people that are wondering, well, where Miata? Where's Smart Car? Yeah, they're small cars. I have a Miata, trust me. I would have included it if I wanted to, but the reality is there are cars that make the Miata look like a giant. Automotive design got so crazy that manufacturers were able to make a car the size of a bike still be a car. So small cars, designed well to serve their purpose and for the environments that they're found in for the most part, and are still designed well enough that they can include basic everyday amenities that still make the cars comfortable enough to use for daily drivers. In the same way that a pickup truck needs to be designed huge to have a long bed to be able to carry stuff, small tiny cars were designed to be able to fit in small narrow streets of compact and dense cities. And they worked very well at it, and they still do today. For the same reason that K cars are still a very common occurrence in Japan and surrounding countries. Anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on the post notifications, follow me on my social medias. And I hope that wherever you guys are, whenever you guys are watching today's video, you have a great and wonderful day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.